Most men blow it before she even knows she wants them. Think about it. You met a woman you're drawn to. Maybe it's at work. Maybe it's through friends. At first there's a spark. But you move too fast, push too hard, and suddenly it's gone. Polite, she's distant. Andy are left wondering what the hell happened. You tried to impress her with words, maybe with money, maybe with constant attention. And instead of pulling her closer, you pushed her away. Here's the truth most men never hear. Attraction isn't built in the obvious moments. It's built in the spaces between them, in the pauses, the unspoken, the things that let her imagination do the heavy lifting. Women live in the details, in the little hints you drop, in the way you make her feel without spelling it all out. That's where the real connection happens, and it's where desire quietly takes root. In this video, we're going to break down the single most powerful thing you can do to ignite that hidden part of her mind. The part that makes her think about you when you're not even around. It's not about cheesy lines or playing games. It's about controlling the pace, mastering the tension, and letting her lean in because she wants to, not because you're pushing. Done right, this changes everything. Well, she starts chasing you, and it begins with one simple shift you can make today. Let's get into it. Number 1, master the slow burn. That one. Master the slow burn that keeps her hooked. There's a reason the best stories don't give everything away in the first chapter. They build, they tease, they make you turn the page because you need to know what happens next. Attraction works the same way, especially with women. The problem is most men either rush the process or avoid it altogether, and in doing so, they kill the very thing that could have made her think about them for days. Let me paint a picture. David, 46, divorced 2 years ago, meets Laura, 42, at a charity wine tasting. There's chemistry right away. She laughs at his quick comments, touches his arm when she talks. But here's where David used talking it wrong. The old him would text her constantly the next day, try to lock down another date immediately, maybe then. Throw in a compliment that was too forward too soon. That pace might feel like enthusiasm to him, but to her, it's like turning on a bright light in a dim room. The atmosphere is gone. This time, David does something different. Keeps first. Interaction light leaves on a high note, and when he texts her the next day, it's short, intriguing, and doesn't demand a reply. He's not ignoring her. He's pacing the connection. Laura goes to bed that night, replaying moments from the wine, tasting, wondering if he's thinking about her too. That's the essence off the slow burn. You're not starving the fire. You're feeding it just enough to keep it alive and growing. You give her something to think about, and then you step back, so her mind can do the rest. This is where desire lives, not in a flood of attention, but in carefully timed sparks. Now, I'm not telling you to play hard to get in some immature game playing way. I'm talking about self-control, core Stoic principle. You decide the rhythm of your interactions instead of letting excitement or fear take the wheel. Marcus Aurelius said, "Have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The slow burn is simply using that strength in a way that keeps her attention without overwhelming her senses. Here's what it looks like in practice. When you're with her, be fully present. Look her in the eyes when she talks. Let moments of silence happen without rushing to fill them. Stoic beats or where tension builds. When you leave, don't try to keep the conversation going endlessly over text. Let the interaction breathe. This isn't about withholding yourself completely. It's about creating space for her curiosity to grow. Think about Laura's side of this. Instead of waking up to a wall of messages, she wakes up wondering if she'll hear from David. That wondering is powerful. It's the same reason people binge watch a series when every episode ends on a cliffhanger. You're giving her a reason to lean in, to want more. And here's the beauty of it. When you set the pace, you avoid coming across as desperate or needy. You become the man who is comfortable in his own skin, who doesn't need to flood her with attention to feel secure. That quiet confidence is magnetic. It's the difference between someone chasing validation and someone inviting. If you're not used to this, it might feel unnatural at first. You might feel the urge to close the gap quickly to make something happen right now. But remember, the fastest way to burn out a fire is to smother it. Let it breathe. Let it build. And when you'll finally step closer, the heat will be 10 times stronger. Drop a comment and claim it. I control pace. And if this slow burn mindset is making sense to you right now, stay with me, because once you understand this, the next step will give you an even deeper advantage, one that most men never even realize exists. 2. Turn small talk into subtle seduction. Number 2. Turn small talk into subtle seduction. Most men treat small talk like an awkward hallway they have to sprint through to get to the real conversation. They rush it, keep it shallow, and then wonder why there's no spark. But here's the thing. If you know how to use it, small talk can be the most powerful tool you have for building attraction. It's not because of what's said, but because of what's felt. The key is to stop seeing small talk as a throwaway moment and start seeing it as a slow drip of connection. You're not delivering facts. You're delivering feeling. And the most effective feeling you can deliver is curiosity mixed with a hint of something unspoken. That's where subtle seduction lives, in the spaces between your words. This is where Stoicism gives you an edge. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." When you truly listen, you can pick up on cues most men miss: the way her tone changes on certain topics, the smile that lingers when she talks about a memory, the subject she keeps circling back to, instead of plowing ahead with your own agenda. You follow the threads she's giving you, you show that you're paying attention. And you respond in a way that leaves the door just slightly open for her imagination. For example, if she mentions a vacation she loved, most guys will immediately jump in with their own travel story. But you can pause, smile, and ask, what was it about that place that you still think about? That's not just small talk anymore. That's an invitation for her to relive something pleasurable with you as the one guiding her there. You're connecting her emotions to your presence without forcing anything physical. Subtle seduction in small talk is also about pacing. You don't unload all your charm at once. You let moments breathe. You give her room to talk, to think, to wonder what you're thinking. A well-timed pause after something she says can speak louder than any witty line you could throw out. It's that pause that allows her to fill the silence with her own curiosity. And here's the beauty. When you shift your focus from impressing to intriguing, everything about your energy changes. You stop chasing validation and you start owning the moment. You become the man who doesn't need to force the conversation because he knows the value of letting it unfold naturally. In a world where everyone is rushing, patience is magnetic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with Thecla of its thoughts." If you carry thoughts of calm, curiosity, and self-control, those colors will show in how you speak and listen. That's what turns small talk into something she wants more of. Not because you're performing, but because you're present. And if you're wondering whether this really makes a difference, think about it. When's the last time someone made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room? When's the last time a conversation felt like it could have gone on for hours without ever running out of things to say? That's the experience you're creating for her. An experience where you're both drawn in without a single overt move being made. So stop rushing through the small part of small talk. Lean into it, slow it down, listen more, speak with purpose, and let curiosity be the current that pulls you both forward. This is the art of weaving subtle seduction into the simplest exchanges, an art that once mastered will make her think about you long after the conversation ends. Drop a comment and claim it. I speak impact. And if you think this is powerful, just wait. Because once you understand how to make even the smallest conversations magnetic, you'll be ready to unlock a deeper layer of connection, one that shifts the entire dynamic without her even realizing it. Number 3, build desire through emotional curiosity. Desire through emotional curiosity. Most men think desire is purely physical, ascertain look, a certain move, the right moment. But the truth is, for most women, lasting desire starts in the mind. And the fastest way to get into her mind is through emotional curiosity. This isn't about interrogating her or asking endless questions. It's about wanting to understand what truly shapes her and then letting that understanding create a connection she can't stop thinking about. Let me give you a real example. Mark, 52, recently met Emily, 47, at a friend's backyard barbecue. Had this energy calm, but with a spark in her eyes. They started with the usual surface talk about food, weather, and mutual friends. But instead of keeping it light forever, Mark shifted the conversation with one question. What's something you've done in your life that made you feel completely alive? Emily paused.
Ow.
It wasn't the kind of question she was used to hearing. She told him about a solo trip she took to the Grand Canyon in her 30s, how she hiked to the bottom and camped alone for a night, watching the stars in absolute silence. As she spoke, her face changed, her voice softened, her eyes lit up, and Mark didn't interrupt. He let her paint the picture. Here's the power. In that moment, Mark wasn't just hearing the facts. He was tapping into a core emotional memory. Emily wasn't just telling him a story. She was reliving an experience that made her feel free, strong, and alive. And now she was associating those feelings with him. Emotional curiosity is about more than just asking deeper questions. It's about giving her the space to open up without fear of judgment. It's about showing that you're genuinely interested in parts of her that most people overlook. And when you connect to those deeper layers, you create a form of intimacy thoughts, far more powerful than any physical move you could make early on. From a Stoic perspective, this is grounded in the idea of sympathia, the interconnectedness of all human beings. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We were born torqued together like feet, hands, and eyes by being genuinely curious about her and her world." You're not trying to control her. You're working with her, inviting her to share herself willingly. But here's the subtlety. You don't turn every conversation into a therapy session. You mix curiosity with playfulness. You can ask about her proudest moments, but you can also ask about small sensory things. The smell of far place she loved, the taste of a dish that brings back memories, the song that always makes her stop and listen. These details pull her back into emotional experiences. And when you're the one guiding that journey, you're part of the memory. Think back to Mark and Emily, days after the barbecue. She found herself remembering that conversation not because it was long or complicated, but because it made her feel seen. And feeling seen is addictive. That's the spark you're aiming for. The more she shares with you, the more you have to work with. You start to notice patterns, the values she holds, the things that excite her, the experiences she craves. And when you respond to those patterns with thoughtfulness, you become someone she feels connected to on a level Mosman never reach. When you build desire through emotional curiosity, you're not just attracting her body, you're engaging her mind. And once her mind is engaged, her imagination starts working in your favor. That's when she begins to think about what it would feel like to be closer to you without you ever having to push. Drop a comment and claim it. I see deeper, and if this way of connecting feels powerful, keep going. Because when you combine this emotional pull with the right kind of presence, you create an effect that's almost impossible for her to resist. Number 4, hint at the forbidden without crossing the line. 1-4. Hint at the forbidden without crossing. The line of the most magnetic forces in human interaction is the pull of the forbidden. It's the reason certain books get banned and instantly become bestsellers. It's why a closed door makes people wonder what's behind it. And in attraction, the same rule applies. 1. You hint at something just beyond reach. Curiosity turns into desire. But there's the mistake most men make. They either avoid this entirely, keeping everything sterile and safe, or they swing the other way and dive straight into explicit territory. Both approaches kill the spark. The sweet spot is in the middle. The art of suggesting without stating, of letting her imagination do the heavy lifting. This doesn't mean you need to be sneaky or manipulative. In fact, Stoicism teaches the opposite, Seneca said. What is allowed is not always honorable. In other words, just because you can say or do something doesn't mean it's wise. The power is in restraint. You keep the interaction charged without crossing the line into something crude or inappropriate. How do you do it? You create moments that feel like they could tilt into something more, but don't. Maybe it's a sharage glance that lingers just a second longer than usual. Maybe it's a comment that could be taken 2 ways, but you never clarify which way you meant it. It's not about trying to trap her into thinking a certain way. It's about opening a door just wide enough for her to wonder if she wants to step through. A practical example, instead of saying something directly sexual, you talk about an experience that holds sensory weight. The taste of a certain wine, the sound of rain hitting a roof late at night, the warmth of a fire after being out in the cold. These are neutral on the surface, but they carry layers of meaning depending on the listener's mindset. The beauty here is that you're giving her building blocks, and if she wants, she can assemble them into something more intimate in her own mind. There's also a pacing element to this. You don't drop suggestive moments back to back. You let them surface naturally in the flow of conversation so they feel authentic, not engineered. This keeps tension alive because she's never quite sure when the next spark will come. From a Stoic angle, this is a form of temperance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Applied here, it means you don't fall into the same patterns as the menwo, overshare, overstep, or overcompensate. You separate yourself by showing that you have control over your words, your actions, and the pace of the interaction. That control is what makes the forbidden safe. Enough to explore in her mind, but exciting enough to keep her hooked. It's important to remember that suggestion works best when you've already built some trust and rapport. Without that foundation, hinting at the forbidden can feel forced. But when she already enjoys talking to you, when there's already a layer of comfort, those subtle moments hit harder, because if they feel like an unspoken agreement between the two of you. And this is where the line really matters. The goal isn't to push boundaries just to see how far you can go. It's to create a shared space where tension and safety coexist. That's when her guard comes down without her even realizing it. And when her mind starts filling in the blanks with possibilities that are far more compelling than anything you could say outright. So don't be afraid to let certain things stay unsaid. In fact, that's where the magic often is. Making conversation, you're creating an atmosphere. And in that atmosphere, it's one well-placed moment off suggestion can be remembered far longer than a 100 direct statements. Drop a comment and claim it. I hold back, and if you've ever felt the pull of a moment that was almost something more, stay with me because what comes next will show you how to turn that spark into something that keeps growing long after a walked away. Number 5. Spark her imagination with playful mystery. If 5. Spark her imagination with playful mystery, there's one thing that keeps a woman thinking about you when you're not around. It's mystery. Not the kind that makes her suspicious or confused, the kind that makes her curious. And when you wrap that mystery in a playful tone, you create something far more powerful than just being hard to read. You become an experience she wants to keep exploring. Let's look at how this works in real life. Brian, 55, met Rachel, 50, at a friend's retirement party. They talked for a while, and just before they parted ways, Rachel asked what Brian was doing the next weekend, smiled and said, "Something I've been looking forward to for a while." Then he left it at that. He didn't elaborate, didn't feel the silence. She tilted her head, gave him a playful look, and said, "Well, that's vague." Brian just smiled, again, and said, "Some things are better experienced than explained." Husky. Brian wasn't trying to make her jealous, and he wasn't playing games. She was adding just enough intrigue for her mind to wander. By not revealing everything, he gave her space to imagine what he might be doing. And in her mind, that scenario could be anything. That mental space is where attraction grows. Playful mystery isn't about hiding your entire life. It's about choosing when to be specific and when to leave some details hanging in the air. You can biopin about your values, your sense of humor, your outlook on life, but you didn't have to give her a complete schedule of your every move. Instead, you drop little breadcrumbs that lead her imagination in different directions. One way to do this is with stories. Tell her about an adventure you had, but leave out just enough that she has to ask questions. Maybe it's a road trip thought went sideways in the best possible way, or a dinner where something unexpected happened. You give her just enough to be engaged, but not so much that she has no reason to wonder. From a Stoic perspective, this aligns with the idea that self-possession is attractive. Epictetus said, "Be silent for the most part, or speak only what is necessary in conversation." That doesn't mean buying cold or withdrawn. It means knowing the value of holding back just enough so that when you do share something, it carries more weight. The playful part is just as important as the mystery part. Without playfulness, you risk coming off as guarded or secretive. Playfulness. The mood light keeps her comfortable and turns curiosity into attraction instead of suspicion. It's the difference between saying, "I can't tell you," in a flat tone and saying, "Now, if I told you, it wouldn't be nearly as fun when you found out." Back to Brian and Rachel. After that first conversation, Rachel found herself wondering about him in small moments while making coffee while driving to work. She realized she wanted to see him again, not just because of what he'd said, but because of what he didn't say. When you master playful mystery, you give her a reason to fill in the blanks with her own ideas. And often the scenarios she creates in her head are far more flattering, exciting, and compelling than anything you could say outright. That's the beauty of it. You let her imagination work for you. Just remember, mystery works best in balance. Too much and you seem distant. Too little and there's nothing for her to wonder about. The sweet spot is when she knows enough to feel connected, but not now to stop thinking about what she doesn't know yet. Drop a comment and claim it. I spark wonder. And if you've ever had someone stick in your mind for days because of something they didn't tell you, stay tuned, because the next step will show you how to turn that lingering curiosity into something much harder for her to shake. Number 6. Ask 6. Ask the questions she's never been asked before. The questions she's never been asked before. If you want to stand out in her mind, you have to give her an experience she's not getting anywhere else. And one of the simplest, most overlooked ways to do that is to ask questions she's never been asked before. Most men keep their questions safe and predictable. What do you do for work? Where are you from? How was your weekend? These are fine for polite conversation, but they don't open doors. They don't take her anywhere new. They don't make her pause, think, and feel something in the moment. A question she's never been asked before interrupts the autopilot. It forces her to engage. It invites her to share parts of herself that are rarely seen. And in doing so, it ties that rare feeling to you. That's where connection becomes magnetic. The key here isn't to get weird or overly personal too fast. It's about being thoughtful. You want questions that are open enough for her to take in any direction she chooses, but specifies enough to be interesting. Instead of, "What's your favorite movie?" you might ask, "What's a scene from a movie that stuck with you for years?" Instead of, "What kind of music do you like?" You could say, if someone wanted to understand you through one song, what would it be? These aren't just trivia questions. They're emotional doorways. They tap into memory, identity, and meaning. They make her consider why something matters to her. And in explaining it, she reels the feeling it gave her. That's a powerful loop to create. From a Stoic perspective, this is about directing attention toward what matters. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In conversation, that Prince of Pletrons lets into quality over quantity. You don't need dozens of shallow exchanges. You need a few that actually let something real. Here's why this works so well. Most women, especially those who have been through enough life to know what they like and what they don't, are used to surface-level interest. They're used to men who listen just long enough to talk about themselves again. When you ask something that's never been asked before, you're showing her that you're paying attention, that you're genuinely licorice, and that you see her as more than just a checklist of facts. And you didn't have to ask a dozen deep questions in a row. In fact, it's better if you don't sprinkle them into a conversation. Let her answer fully, and then follow where her answer leads. If she tells you about a memory from her childhood, ask her what she remembers feeling in that moment. If she shares something that made her proud, ask her why it mattered to her then and why it still matters now. These are the questions that leave a mark because they go beyond the expected. They show that you're not just passing time, you're building something. You're giving her a rare space to express herself in, a way that feels both safe and engaging. And the best part, these questions don't just help her open up. They help you see if she's the kind of person you actually want to invest more time in. Curiositize, a two-way street. And if she meets your curiosity with her own, you've got the beginnings of something real. Drop a comment and claim it. I ask better love. And when you know how to guide a conversation into uncharted territory, you unlock the next level where the connection you've built starts to create a pull. She feels even in your absence. 7. Use suggestion to create emotional heat. Number 7. Use suggestion to create emotional heat. Sometimes the most powerful way to create attraction isn't by showing everything you feel. It's by letting her sense there's more under this surface. Suggestion works because it invites her mind to fill in the blanks, and often her imagination will. Take it further than anything you could say directly. Think about this like the difference between a movie that shows every detail versus one that leaves certain moments just out of frame. That gap is where her curiosity lives and where emotional heat starts to build. Take Tom, 48, and Melissa, 45. They met at a mutual friend's art gallery opening. During a casual conversation, Melissa mentioned she loved old jazz accords. Tom smiled and said, "There's a place I go sometimes that plays the kind-off music you'd like. But it's not the kind of place I can explain. You have to feel it." Then he shifted the subject. He didn't invite her there, didn't give you an address, just planted the seed. That night, Melissa found herself thinking about it. What kind of place was it? What made it special? And more importantly, why did he think she would like it? It's the beauty of suggestion. It works because it's incomplete. You're not making promises you can't keep. You're not being manipulative. You're giving her a thread. And if she wants, she can follow it. From a Stoic standpoint, this is self-control in action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Suggestion influences those thoughts without force. You're guiding her attention towards something intriguing and letting her own mind create the emotional charge. You can use this in conversation through tone, pacing, and the details you choose to share. Instead of telling a full story, you share a moment, a glance across a crowded room, the smell of a certain perfume, the way the night air felt walking home. Details like these carry sensory weight.
Oh, yes?
They're neutral enough to be safe, but rich enough to be suggestive. For Tom, that place might just be a small jazz lounge he visits now and then. But to Melissa, it's now layered with mystery, intimacy, and a sense of shared experience waiting to happen. Every time she hears jazz after that, she'll think of him. That's emotional heat. Not because of what he told her, but because of what he left and said. The trick is to use suggestions sparingly. Too much, and it loses its power. The goal is to create flashes of curiosity, not a fog of confusion. Suggestion works best when there's already some rapport. When she's already leaning in, then you add just an intrigue for her to want to lean further. Drop a comment and claim it. Spark heat. And if you've ever had a moment where something simple kept replaying in your head, you'll understand exactly why the next step is effective at turning that spark into a steady, undeniable pull. Number 8. 8. Let her cross the line on her own. Let her cross the line on her own. One of the biggest mistakes men make in building attraction is pushing too hard too soon. They try to close the gap before the other person is ready. And in doing so, they kill the tension that makes the moment exciting in the first place. When you push, you take away her urgency. When you hold back, when you create an atmosphere where she feels safe, curious, and drawn in, you give her the space to take the next step herself. And here's the thing. When she crosses the line, it means more. She owns the moment. She's invested in it, and she'll remember it longer. This is same principle you see in good storytelling. The best authors don't hand the reader every detail. They set the scene and let the reader's imagination do the work. In attraction, it's about setting the emotional scene. You create just enough charge for her to feel something building. Then you let her decide when and how to act on it. From a Stoic perspective, this is about discipline and patience, Seneca wrote. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. When you let her cross the line on her own, you're proving your own strength, the ability to resist the easy move and wait for the right one. You're not chasing validation. You're creating conditions where mutual desire can grow naturally. In practice, this means You don't escalate physically or verbally until she's signaling she's ready. Those signals can be subtle, lingering eye contact, leaning in closer, mirroring your body language, asking more personal questions. When you see them, you acknowledge them, but you still let her make the next move. It might look like a this. You're in a conversation that's getting more personal. There's a pause where she's clearly comfortable, maybe even a little nervous. Instead of jumping in to break it, you hold it. Yeah, I'll keep eye contact. You give her the chance to step forward, literally or figuratively. And when she does, the energy is completely different than if you had tried to pull her in yourself. The beauty of this approach is that it respects her boundaries while still keeping the attraction alive. It's not about being passive. It's about being deliberate. You're active in creating the conditions, but you're not forcing the outcome. That's a level of control most men don't have, and it's why it's so attractive when you do. Another Stoic idea that applies here comes from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control when she decides to cross the line, but you can control how you show up, how you carry yourself, and how you make her feel in your presence. That control creates trust, and trust is what makes her feel safe enough to take the step herself. And when she does, you don't overreact. You don't act like you've won some method. You simply meet her where she is and keep the energy steady. Because real power isn't in the single moment she crosses the line. It's in the ongoing dynamic that moment sets in motion. If you've been paying attention to every step we've covered so far, the Sony becomes almost effortless. You've built curiosity. You've sparked imagination. You've created emotional heat. All that's left is to give her space to act on it. And when she does, the attraction becomes mutual, not one-sided. That's when it sticks. Drop a comment and claim it. I let it happen. And when you see how powerful it is to let her make the move, you'll understand the next step works like fuel on a fire because it takes that mutual energy and amplifies it in a way that's nearly impossible to forget. Number 9. Borrow the blueprint from women's romance stories. Borrow the blueprint from women's romance stories. If you really want to understand how to create emotional pull, look at the kinds of romance stories women consume. We're talking novels, shows, even certain movies. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're blueprints for the emotional journey that makes women feel deeply invested. And here's the interesting part. Those stories almost always follow a pattern. There's tension, there's challenge, there's a sense that the connection is special, because it's not instantly won. The man in these stories doesn't hand himself over on a silver platter. He has his own life, his own standards, his own quiet confidence. That's exactly what draws her in. Take David, 50, and Laura, 46. They met through a hiking group and saw each other occasionally on weekend trails. Laura loved reading romance novels in her free time stories about two people whose attraction built slowly through shared experiences. Without even knowing it, David mirrored this. He didn't try to fast-track anything. Instead, he focused on being present during their hikes, teasing her lightly when she tripped over a root, listening when she shared stories about her family. Over time, their interactions started to feel like chapters in a book, each one adding a little more to the connection. That is key you can borrow from these stories. Pacing. You build attraction the way a good novel builds a plot, letting the tension simmer, allowing space for anticipation. And just like in those books, the man who stays grounded in his own life, who challenges her in playful ways, becomes far more compelling than the one who's availably in demand. From a psychological perspective, this works because anticipation is a form of reward. Fellinger, she waits for something that feels worth it. The more she values it when it happens. Your job is to create that sense of journey without faking anything. So think of your connection with her like the best parts of a story, shared moments. A mix of lightheartedness and depth, and steady. Build towards something she can feel but can't quite name yet. That's how you keep her turning the page. Comment and claim it. I write the story. And if you've ever wondered how to turn that slow, steady build into a lasting connection, The final step will show you exactly how to lock it in without losing the spark. 10. Plant desire and let it grow till she can't resist. Number 10. Plant desire and let it grow until she can't resist. Desire isn't something you can force in the moment. If you try, it usually backfires. Real desire is planted quietly, nurtured slowly, and left to grow until it becomes impossible to ignore. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't yank on it every day to see if it's growing. You give it the right conditions and let nature do its work. In attraction, Thaza conditions are the feelings and associations you leave her with after every interaction. When you walk away, what's left in her mind? Is it just small talk, or is it a memory she keeps replaying? You create this by giving her experiences, not just words. Maybe it's a conversation that leaves her laughing long after you've gone. Maybe it's a small detail you noticed about her that no one else has mentioned. Maybe it's the way you carried yourself in a moment that mattered. Calm, confident, present. These are the kinds of moments that stick, and they work quietly in the background long after you're out off sight. From a Stoic perspective, this is patience in practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "No great thing is created suddenly." The same applies to attraction. You don't rush it, you respect the process. Every time you interact, you add another layer. A little more curiosity, a little more connection, a little more pull. The most important part, you give her space, Thomas. If you're always there, always available, there's no room for the seed to grow. But if you step back just enough, she starts to feel the absence, and that absence makes her realize she wants more. Over time, the accumulation of those feelings becomes something bigger. She's not just interested, she's drawn in. And when she acts on that desire, it feels like her choice, which makes it even stronger. By planting desire and letting it grow, you're not just creating attraction. You're creating something that lasts, because it wasn't rushed, it wasn't forced, and it wasn't dependent on constant attention. It's organic, it's mutual, and it's far more powerful than anything that comes from chasing. That's it for today's conclusion video. If you found value in what we talked about, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss Tomoro's lesson. Thanks for spending your time with me today. I appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to see you back tomorrow. Till then, stay grounded, stay sharp, and keep living with intention.